The Mysterious Fortune is a very unique set. It gave us clear main deck support with new and empowered playstyles, but at the same time introduced and strengthened sub-archetype support. And that's what we're tackling today.
Stand up! Vanguard!
With an introduction of the Mysterious Fortune, we got the new hyper-aggressive gold Paladin led by Agravain, the lottery manipulation playstyle with Isabel, and the raw value of the evolution token with Ouroboros. These were on the forefront in terms of the meta discussion, but behind them we also got some interesting new low value support which strengthened the already solid Garmore for gold Paladin, and this set established the Hammsuke and Musketeer archetype for Great Nature and Nectar. We have the usual rules in effect, but with one list in particular I will be a bit more lenient as it helps to get the maximum potential out of the cards and makes the deck even compete with meta relevant decks. Let's start with an upgrade list from a budget deck we featured before in this series, and it's the new and improved Garmore deck. This set provides us with some new cards that supports the garmr playstyle, where we can upgrade the deck to focus more on the one card in hand playstyle, which combats the loss of defense value, but at the same time gives more value out of playing with such a heavy risk strategy. So with these new cards we can build this deck. This deck costs around $35.50, but a little disclaimer, that is without the draw PGs. So replace the draw PGs with any other trigger you like. But if you want to play the deck at full power and get them for a good price, then I recommend to getting them to add to this list. The most expensive card in this list is Garmore at $4 a pop. You can replace it with Full Cavalier Dragon, but you lose the Din Drain interaction. The main grade 3 of this deck is Great Silver Wolf Garmor. This card allows you to populate the board, give a good power boost, and have a built-in field protection. And with the new addition, this protection becomes even better, where before it was a mere gimmick. One of the support grade 3s is Battlefield Storm Garmore. This card helps us to fill the board just like Garmor, only this way we can have a bit more control over what we can call, and we also can spread our resource cost. The other support grade 3 is Knight of Unison Yuzel. He can be a giant beatstick turn after turn, as Garmor can protect his board, making this unit a serious threat. In the grade 2 lineup we have Advance of the Black Chains Paladin. This is another card that helps us to populate the board, but it synergizes with other cards, so it can be an extender from Garmor's ability. We also have Cloudwing Eagle. This card helps us to unleash powerful attacks with all the extra superior calling the deck does. Also, this deck wants us to unload our entire hand to get more value out of our units. This will also synergize really well with Cloudwing Eagle. All Out Knight Ethels is another card that helps us to flood the board, but it doesn't cost resources, but cards out of hand, which synergizes with this deck. But it can also combo off of Garmore or Brenius. The last grade 2 is Providential Angel. This card helps us to put pressure behind our attacks, as this build can make solid powerful lanes, and this card makes it impossible to guard every attack, and that combined with crits can solidify wins. In the grade 1 slots we have Knight of Vitality Brenius. This card helps us with early game pressure, but it also synergizes really nicely with Garmor and Garmore and Ethels. We also have Stronghold of the Black Chains Well. This card helps us to unleash strong attacks in the early game and also empower Paladin. We get less late game value out of Howell, as we don't superior call mid battle, but it makes guarding early game a lot harder than normal. A new addition to this list is Knight of Ferocious Intellect Gunhild. This card helps the deck in so many ways. It gives Garmor more survivability the moment you get to the field protection. Also, the 13k boost is really nice, as it plus any 13 or 9k unit plus the 6k of Garmor makes solid 27 to 32k columns. Lastly, we have Listener of Truth Din Drain. This card helps us with the resource issues, and it is also a solid 10k booster. This card can be easily activated from the many superior call effects, either from hand or deck. This deck has a couple of different options available to it. They can swarm the board with the many superior call units. They can also build strong solid attackers to overwhelm our opponent with high numbers. They have PG guard restriction, field wide protection, and they can have a really solid defense early game. The way you use them can give you different strategies. You can go in swinging fast from turn 1 and finish up with solid numbers when entering turn 3 and onwards. Or you can save up for the moments you have 1 or 2 axle circles and then build build up massive attacks with guard restrict, and of course anything in between. You can also now adapt a more defensive playstyle where you guard aggressively to reach one card in hand. This allows you to protect your field and get more value out of your Garmors on plays or from cards like Uzel. And you can still guard incoming attacks if needed with any gun hilts on the field. Garmore's on plays ability gives 6 units plus 3k, but you need a field. The timing allows you on right to first activate a standby Brenius to go into a Suckermore of Ethels to flood the board. Only important note here is that you can go from a Suckermore into another Suckermore or Ethels, but not the other way around. You might be lucky and hit a Kahedin, but after an Ethels, you stop the chain and you now must resolve Garmore's ability. Use this to get the most value out of your Garmor. This combo was known with the old list, but with the inclusion of Knight of Unison Uzel, you can now cheat in a massive beat stick before you enter your main phase, as you can use the aforementioned combo to end off with the Uzel, and this will all happen during the right phase, meaning you suddenly cheat out a massive beater which your opponent didn't expect. Combine Cloudwind Eagle with other superior call units to build a massive beater. Every Garmor rewrite, he will be a solid 80k attacker with the 3k from Garmor. If you combine him with cards like Uzel and Providential Angel, then you can build really high numbers, especially with cards like Hole, 10k Dindrain and the overall 3k power from Garmor. This deck can be a bit tricky to master, but opens up for way more tactical choices than most Gold Paladin decks, even when compared to Agravain, as this deck has some defensive options attached to it. The next build we're going to tackle is the birth of a new archetype within Great Nature. We had the 3 Hamsuke cards with the previous set, but it was far from an actual build. Now with the new Hamsuke cards and the Axel Circle interactions, we can actually build a very solid build. This deck costs around $37, where most of the value lies in the old Hamsuke Grade 3 and the draw PGs. If you already have them from the last year's support wave, then you can fix the rest of the deck for around $9 to $10. The main grade 3 of the deck is Pencil Hero Hamsuke. It allows us to create extra Axel circles and filter the deck, and this has become even more insane with the introduction of Axel 2, as it is effectively a +2. The backup grade 3 is Hamsuke's rival Rocket Pencil Hamden. This card allows us to put insane power onto the board, but also fix our soul in case we missed a card for the right chain. But in the case you fix the right chain, this card is a different cycle that adds extra soul for other cards like the next grade 3. That is Culture Gorilla. This is the deck's big finisher play. On your second grade 3 turn, if you could successfully ride Pencil Hero Hamsuke, you will have 7 front row circles. And if you use 1 or 2 Hamden, then you have more than enough soul. If you hit 1 front trigger, then you can unleash insane powerful attacks that can overwhelm any opponent. For grade 2s, we have Pencil Knight Hamsuke. This is for the right chain and can be a solid 12 to 20k attacker on your grade 3 turns. The main support grade 2 is Hamsuke's rival red and blue Pencil Hamhiko. This card is your main consistency tool, as it can help you find the grade 1 or grade 3 Hamsuke if you miss them for the right chain. It is also a solid attacker in the overall game plan. Another solid attacker is Geograph Giant. This can be a giant beatstick on an Axel circle, as it can be a 22 to 27k unit without any extra power stacked on top of it. The last grade 2 is Art Club member Per Noir. This card can help us with a big problem for the deck, and that is running out of the grade 1 and 2 Hamsukes when rewriting into Pencil Hero Hamsuke. In the grade 1 spots, we have Pencil Squire Hamsuke. This is for the right chain that can also be a solid 12 to 20k beater on your grade 3 turns, and it can help you set up for your right chain. For the right chain support, we have Hamsuke's classmate Pestle Marker Hamna. This card allows us to either dig deeper through a deck to key pieces, which can be the grade 2 on our turn 1, or to our grade 3 before turn 3. But it can also fix our right chain late game if we're still missing a part. Last card is Solution Tenric. This card gives us a good endgame pressure card, and we can achieve this condition quite fast with all the cycling and extra drawing thanks to the extra marker generation. For this deck, you want to achieve the right chain each and every single turn. So you need Pencil Squire and Pencil Knight in the soul and ride Pencil Hero. You can fix this in a couple of ways. You can call Pencil Squire to the rear to fetch Pencil Knight. You can also use Hamna on turn 1 want to Soul Blast the starter and hopefully draw into the grade 2 or 3, you can use Hamsuke to fetch the grade 1 if you miss him in your soul, or the grade 3 if you miss him in your hand. The only card that you can fix for your right chain is the grade 2 besides using Pencil Squire Hammsuke. The biggest change about this new support is the fact that you can fix the right chain after riding into grade 3. In the previous support, when you couldn't ride the right chain and missed the grade 2 in your soul, your Pencil Hero Hamsuke would become a dead card in your deck. Now with Hamden and Hamna, you can fix the right chain even after riding grade 3. So try to fix your soul as soon as possible. Once your soul is set up, you can unleash mayhem with your solid attackers, as you can swing in with easy 17 to 32k numbers when combining Axel 2 with Hamden and your 12k and 70k beaters. This pressure alone can cripple a lot of decks, especially with the early game beforehand and a solid finish with Solution Tenrik. But as you know, we have Culture Gorilla, and this card is your big finisher. When you could set things up, usually the moment you use him, you have 3 to 4 Axel circles, as ideally you have rewritten once, meaning you have 4 soul. This means during this turn you want to resolve 1 Hamden to get to the 5 soul. Also, Hamden makes it possible that more units get over the 25k threshold. Of course, if you use a Hamhiko this game, then you need to use 1 more Hamden. But that's no issue, as Hamden is one of your main pressure tools for the deck, so you will use him when possible. The idea is to have 15k units in the front row, so when you drive check 1 front, you can restand every unit after the Vanguard attacks. This is pretty easy to do, as most of your units are 17 to 22k on an Axel 2. And with Hamden on a normal circle, you can turn any unit on the Axel circle to go above 15k or immediately reach the 25k threshold, while making him 22k and adding 1 more soul, which basically showcases how well Hamden synergizes with Culture Gorilla. The deck has some insane draw, cycle and filter potential, which makes the deck pretty consistent, even though it relies on a right chain to be fulfilled before the deck can really shine what it wants to do. Now it's time for the last budget deck of the Mysterious Fortune, and just like Great Nature, this deck comes from an archetype that existed from the first support wave, but only now is its own deck, which are the Musketeers. This deck focuses on second units to superior call more from the deck and get benefit from units being superior called. So this was a deck I was talking about that will break the rules, because the current VR build of Abora's Dragon is cheaper than this deck. And that has to do with the fact that it needs a lot of triple Rs and double Rs from the previous set. If not regarding the VR, the build would be around $80, which is already pretty expensive. Adding in the 4 VR Cecilias, then you look at around $140, which is a lot of money for some people. But I still want to tackle this deck, as it's the only other functional deck you can build for Neo Nectar, as it is really cheap for players that already have the previous support. Also, Musketeers is an archetype that regularly gets support, and their playstyle has always been the same, so getting these cards now have a much higher chance to be useful and playable in the future than most other sub-archetypes and budget cards. The main grade 3 is White Lily Musketeer Cecilia. This helps you to filter your deck and fill the board, as well as giving a lot of power to the field. Your backup right target is Peony Musketeer Martina. This basically is a weaker Cecilia as a Vanguard unit, but at the same time isn't that bad as a first right target, as you use Soul instead of Counterblast. Also, this is the ideal superior call unit, as it gains power and a crit, which means you can either have insane high numbers with a crit on Force 1 or powerful attacks with 3 crits if you went for Force 2. For grade 2, we have Peony Musketeer Torre. In this pure Musketeer deck, this is a solid +1 on the field, unless you're unlucky and only see triggers. This is also a very solid turn 2 target, as it helps you to swarm the field. Fancy Musketeer Sylvia is a solid early game card, as it can create a free token, and during the mid to late game it creates free fodder for your other Musketeer cards to really generate more value. Lily of the Valley Musketeer Kaivant is just a solid beat stick that helps generate high columns in the early game to force damage or waste a lot of shield in the late game. For good ones, we have Dandelion Musketeer Murka. This is another token generator, but it also can become a solid booster with all the extra superior calling that can happen in this deck. Next up, we have our main power booster, and that is Amphibian Musketeer Gaston. This is just like Martina, the card to call from your superior call cards to get a free 18k booster or attacker. Lastly, we have Lily of the Valley Musketeer Rebecca. This is a solid all-around card. It gives extra power to the board, but it can also also be a solid +1 if you can bounce it back to hand to either get more defensive value or get more value from her on-place ability. The strategy of the deck is to create tokens and then sacrifice tokens for other units to superior call units to the field and get benefit from doing so, and continue this cycle until you get the board you want and attack. And next turn, rinse and repeat. You sacrifice units with Cecilia, Martina and Torre to get more units onto the board. This in turn will empower units like Mirka with multiple placed units, or units like Gaston or Martina if called through this way. As said, you ideally want to sacrifice tokens so you can get free units to the board, but you do want to be careful to keep some tokens onto the board so it can empower Kyvant or use Rebecca, because tokens are limited, as we only have Sylvia and Mirka that can create tokens in this build. So the next ideal target to sack is an already used Gaston or Martina, as they become vanilla the following turn. Same as for Kyvant, but Kyvant is better used as a potential 5k shield, so you get more value out of your superior call skills. Just like the old Cecilia build, you can call a board, use them as free interceptors, and sacrifice the remainder units that are still alive to create a new board and deck filter at the same time. Now with the new Musketeer cards, that is cranked up to 11. You can definitely find yourself cycling through units in one turn. A good example of this is that you can call a Mirka and create a token in front of her. Sacrifice the token with Cecilia and call 2 new units, which one is a Torre and the other is a Sylvia, which triggers the Mirka again. Then call the Sylvia token in the same spot to trigger Mirka for the 3rd time. Then sacrifice the token with Torre and call a Martina in the same spot, which triggers Mirka again. And if you're lucky, you called a Gaston somewhere along the way, which means you can have a 28k Torre column, a 13k Vanguard, which maybe has a booster behind it, and a 38k Martina column that swings with a crit. This costed 2 counterblasts and 1 soul. And that is without any force markers and without the potential 10k in the front row of a Cecilia, which would make this even better. And this is a late game scenario. This deck can go off on turn 2, so it can be a very aggressive deck. But to get really the most value out of your skills, you need to learn how to min-max your calling, learn what to place where and when, as every card has the correct place to be called at that point in the chain to get the most value on the specific call, but to also allowing yourself to extend to more calls that turn, or maybe even a setup for next turn's chain calling. And that was the last budget deck for the Mysterious Fortune. We've seen some very interesting new strategies for each and every deck. Gold Paladin with flooding the board and swinging with high powered attacks and a built-in protection. Neo Nectar's Musketeer that is similar in swarming the board and hitting with high numbers, but they filter the deck more aggressively and create tokens while also swing potentially with more crits but with less number of attacks. And finally we had Hammsuke for great nature that works around a right chain and gets significant value out of achieving that to ensure victory. This set really establishes sub-archetypes for these clans, and it's likely that we're going to see this more and more with the future sets. Thank you for watching this budget deck video for the Mysterious Fortune, and with that we conclude all the videos for that specific set. So with that, we're gonna dive straight into the next set that is all about Bermuda Triangle with their new extra booster, Crystal Melody. So if you're a big fan or avid of the Bermuda Triangle clan itself, then you can have your full for the coming next 1 to 2 weeks on the channel as we dive into everything concerning that set. From set breakdowns to card reviews, from deck profiles, and even 1 or 2 budget deck options like we discussed today. And if any of that sounds interesting to you, then why not subscribe to the channel, hitting the bell button to be updated for the future videos, and while you're at it, why not slap a like on the video if you're interested in more content like this, so we're gonna bring that more often to your devices. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely Patreons over at patreon.com/Vanguard Insider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, why not head on over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!